Among the Necrons, there is one known as the Infinite. Obsessed with preserving and collecting historical treasures, he eagerly fills the underground vaults of his necropolises with various treasures, relics, and even living subjects, such as members of the retinue of an overly curious inquisitor. His goal is to save everything worthy of remaining for ages in the galaxy, and in order to obtain a new exhibit for his astounding museum, even one that may seem like mere trinkets to someone, he is willing to reduce entire worlds to dust. He holds the position of senior archaeovist of the Solemnace Galleries, and he is called Trazyn the Infinite. Many attribute the nickname of Thief to his activities, which he strongly disagrees with, preferring to be hailed as the Master of Rare Moments, the Lord of the Great Library, or the Eternalizer of Histories. We must not let the relics of antiquity be broken and crushed by the savagery of unenlightened creatures, for only by understanding these treasures may we conquer the future. Only we, who have broken free from the shackles of mortality and bound the infinite majesty of the cosmos to our will, can be trusted with this task. That is why we are here, on this wretched pit of a planet. Eliminate these mortals as you see fit, but do try to keep the collateral damage to a minimum. Trazyn the Infinite. Trazyn is the keeper of artifacts and the past. The vast and numberless vaults burrowed through the tomb world of Solemnace are crowded with technologies so rare and sublime that any Adeptus Mechanicus tech priest would give the life of several close colleagues just to know that they existed. The sunken chambers of the galleries are crowded with artifacts of all forms, the fabled wraithbone choir of the Asuriani Altansar craft world, the preserved head of Sebastian Thor, the ossified husk of an enslaver, and a giant of a man clad in Baroque power armor, his face contorted in a permanent scream, to name but a few. And this is just a small part of Trazyn the Infinite's collection, which he has been assembling for the past 60 million years. And since Trazyn was awake while the rest of the Necrons slept in eternal slumber, among the exhibits of his museum are creatures that became extinct approximately 500,000 years ago, those whose loss was mourned by the entire galaxy, as well as other species that simply disappeared without a trace. Solemnace is located on the eastern fringe and is part of the Nihilak dynasty. This grey and gloomy tomb world is hidden in the depths of space, where almost absolute darkness reigns, except for the cold glow of the colourless sun bathing the planet. Both celestial bodies have an artificial origin. The star is a cluster of mirrors, the angles of which are precisely calibrated to capture excess energy from the powerful source within the planetoid's depths. The planetoid itself is a colossal Dyson sphere, with a shell of nanomachines and an artificial atmosphere. Inside there are hundreds of layers slowly rotating around the core, where the imprisoned Satan resides, the jewel of Trazyn the Infinite's collection and the source of his power, according to his own words. However, it is not the only star god languishing in captivity with him. In the late 41st millennium, Trazyn captured a shard of Neadra Zatha, the Burning One, which he barely retrieved from the depths of the planet Midgardia in the Fenris system. The most impressive wonders of Solemnace are the prismatic galleries, twisting halls with an extensive collection of sculptures, reproducing events that, according to Trazyn the Infinite, are worthy of being remembered forever. Among the most grandiose exhibitions, it is worth noting the underground war on Kalth, where the word-bearers clashed with the Ultramarines, as well as the diorama depicting the invasion of an entire shard of the Tyrannid Hive fleet Kronos. However, in these exhibitions, there are not just statues, but also living beings transformed into contrasting holograms using mysterious technology. Among them are the true protagonists of history, frozen in moments of triumph or defeat. Those taken to Solemnace remain there forever as a testament to their deeds. Among them is even a flawless clone of Primarch Fulgrim. Trazyn gave him to the infamous Fabius Bile in exchange for pure Emperor's Children gene seed lost during the Great Crusade. Thus, Fabius Bile redeemed himself from Trazyn the Infinite, who wished to add him, or at least one of his copies, to his collection. According to Trazyn the Infinite himself, centuries ago, he was close to capturing another of the Emperor's sons, Robuta Guilliman. Furthermore, before the resurrection of the Primarch, in a skirmish with Captain Cato Sicarius, Trazyn hinted that he was considering visiting Macragga, believing that Rabuta Gilliman would feel more comfortable in his company. The treasures of Trazyn the Infinite continue to grow, as history does not stand still, and accordingly he strives to keep pace with the times. Unfortunately, few worlds obediently surrender the artifacts Trazyn needs, selfishly clinging to a few significant items for their civilization instead of passing them on for preservation for eternity. In such cases, Trazyn the Infinite has no choice but to gather his armies and obtain what he desires through force. And if it requires destroying a city, a planet, or even entire sectors, then so be it. Trazyn views any war raging in space as an opportunity to add new specimens to his collection. After all, the larger the conflict, the more impressive the curiosities that can be plundered. For example, a fragment of Baneblade armor is priceless to Trazyn, but only if this Imperial tank is surrounded by legends and renowned for its exploits. Such prey is more than attractive to the ruler of Solemnace, and for it, he is willing to venture into the heart of battle accompanied by Lich Guards. Most Lich Guards are equipped with the heavy but nigh unstoppable War Scythe, while a smaller number carry hyperphase swords and dispersion shields. If his own forces are insufficient, then Trazyn resorts to the assistance of other prominent Necrons. Thus, he allied himself with Imhotep the Stormlord to reach the mythical stars of Cain. When the Tyrannid Hive Fleet Behemoth invaded the galaxy and threatened Solemnace, Trazyn's eternal rival Oricon the Diviner even prophesied his demise and the destruction of his museum by the claws of the Great Devourer. However, Trazyn had to disappoint this foolish mystifier by launching decoys into deep space, causing the swarm to bypass Solemnace like water around a stone. Later, Oricon attempted to destroy Trazyn the Infinite's galleries by engineering malfunctions in the stasis systems of the exhibits, considering Solemnace an eyesore in the galaxy, clouding his prophetic vision. Trazyn managed to drive off Oricon, but since then he has dreamed of putting him in a diorama dedicated to the war in the museum that he unleashed. Learning that the planet Solemnace mysteriously avoided the Tyrannid Hive Fleet Behemoth, the Inquisition raised a question that demanded an answer. Valeria led an operational group to investigate the circumstances and discovered myriad wonders in Trazyn's vast galleries. However, when the uninvited guests delved into the depths of the planet, the tomb came alive. The ensuing battle caused chaos and led to the destruction of several particularly important exhibits. What forced him to intervene personally? At the climax of the battle, Valeria killed the museum's curator. But within moments the master emerged from the shadows whole and unharmed. Valeria ordered a retreat to the shuttles. Only a few from the expedition managed to survive, and even then they returned empty-handed. To Valeria's disappointment, the tomb world of Solemnace preserved all its glorious secrets. Sometime after the conflict, Valeria received a personal hyperscroll message from Trazyn himself, thanking her for sending 5 regiments of Catacomb jungle fighters to add to his galleries. Accompanying the message as a return gift was a hyperstone maze, one of a series of tesseract labyrinths. Somehow Helena managed to evade her and even learned to use it as an interdimensional prison, where she sent her enemies. It is not known for certain what happened to Helena, but most likely she fell victim to the Puritan Inquisitor Catarina Greyfax, whom Trazyn the Infinite eventually captured in retaliation for her murder. Among those whom Trazyn often encounters, Vulcan Hestan of the Salamanders chapter should be mentioned, who has been attacked by Necron overlords twice. At their first meeting, the stranger attempted to wrest the spear of Vulcan from the warrior's hands. Trazyn the Infinite eagerly desires to acquire this marvel of technology, and it is entirely possible, though not proven, that he is behind the mysterious deaths of several previous Forge Fathers. Later, the ancient Xenos attempted to lure Histan into a trap during the Tok'ran Crusade, but Vulcan Histan once again repelled him. After the opening of the Great Rift, many believed that the devastating warp storms and disruptions have made the search for Histan impossible. However, it is precisely in this darkest hour that a new clue emerged, a bright spot in the darkness of the Dark Imperium. in a world called Zero, a clue hinting at the location of another artifact of the Primarch called the Unbound Flame. And all that remains is to wait and see if Trazyn the Infinite is once again involved in this. Now we take the treasures valuable to you, and one day we will surely take the entire galaxy. You lack the wit to accept it as it is, so you are unworthy of either. Trazyn the Infinite. At times, living statues in the galleries shatter due to a malfunctioning Canoptech wraith crashing into them, ceiling collapses, or, as in the previously described catastrophic case, shootouts between Trazyn the Infinite's subordinate warriors and the retinue of an overly curious inquisitor, most of whom now form a separate composition on one of the upper floors. Such incidents vex Trazyn the Infinite as they force him to suspend the search for new valuable acquisitions and seek replacements for the lost ones. Of course, few statues are replaceable, but Trazyn himself sets the standards in his museum. Therefore, if he decides that one of the contrasting pictures will serve its purpose, even with a replica, however inaccurate it may be, then he will undoubtedly acquire it. For example, fully 1/10 of his Death of Lord Solar Maccareus gallery is populated by holographic Imperial Guardsmen whose uniforms are 300 standard years astray from historical fact. But Trazyn cares only for the spectacle, not the details of bootlaces and buttonholes. If Trazyn the Infinite plans to refresh his museum, he urgently seeks out armies engaged in military campaigns, vulnerable garrisons, or inhabited worlds with flaws in planetary defense. Depending on the damage inflicted on the exhibition, replacement specimens can be gathered in just a few flybys of night sides at low altitude, although sometimes it is necessary to mobilize more significant forces for a detailed analysis and cataloguing of planetary populations. Tomb worlds also receive attention from Trazyn the Infinite, as he believes that other Necrons are no more reliable than aliens when it comes to preserving the artifacts he so avidly collects. For this reason, Trazyn makes no special distinction between valuable items contained in alien worlds or held by his brethren. As a result of such journeys to his brethren, he has become an unwelcome figure on several tomb worlds. Under the threat of death, he is permanently forbidden to appear in the catacombs of Mandrake due to his long-ago attempt to secretly steal the staff of the Destroyer belonging to Imhotep. However, Trazyn the Infinite is warmly welcomed on Moebius, with the strict condition that his arrival somehow strengthens the position of the Nechthys dynasty. These cases partly explain why Trazyn the Infinite rarely travels under his own name and uses pseudonyms to conceal his identity. He considers the names he invents as a skillful manifestation of deception, although in reality they are simply taken from ancient Necron myths or fictional literature. And the fact that Trazyn the Infinite is rarely exposed before he makes his move speaks more to the insularity and narrow-mindedness of other Necron nobles than to his ability to deceive the enemy. And although his plans are rarely as cunning as he would like to think, Trazyn has perfected the art of acting through infected Canoptech nanoscarab slaves. If he needs to be present somewhere personally, then justifying his name, he transfers his consciousness from one Necron host to another. Even on Orc planets, in Tau Sept, and human colonies where Trazyn the Infinite acts strictly through puppeteered individuals with washed brains, he strives to keep his identity a secret at all costs. He is well aware that his activities have attracted the attention of some rogue traders and inquisitors, which was simply inevitable, as the convoluted history of the Imperium irresistibly draws such a collector as Trazyn. And although he maintains confidence that he can outwit primitive humans trying to lure him into a trap, a healthy paranoia helps him take due precautions. Trazyn usually conducts reconnaissance and campaign leadership through surrogates, body doubles in which he invests his will. In case of catastrophic damage to a surrogate, the essence of Trazyn the Infinite simply returns to his shell or transfers to another surrogate. Many surrogates are real lords or overlords of the Necrons, whose bodies were seized by Trazyn without their knowledge. As a result, not all incarnations of Trazyn the Infinite can be immediately recognized. If he needs to seize someone's body, he can do it as easily as with any other surrogate. The consciousness of the victim is suppressed for the duration of Trazyn's temporary use, and its shell instantly becomes an exact copy of the original when necessary. Thus, protected from any dangers of the galaxy, Trazyn can go wherever he pleases. In cases where consciousness transference may be complicated, Trazyn resorts to another trick. He transforms available surrogate shells at hand, but does not attempt to transfer into one of them. Instead, he appears on the battlefield accompanied by his exact duplicates, thereby complicating the task for his enemies to kill him. Although Trazyn the Infinite officially pledges allegiance to the distinguished lineage of the Nihilakh, his dynastic affiliation seems to mean little to him, and therefore remains questionable, likely even to himself. Instead of the Ankh on his chest, Trazyn wears the familial glyph of the Nazaras, which among the Necrons is considered a brazen act, even though the Triarch is long gone. However, considering Trazyn the Infinite's ability to transmute and his duplicitous nature, it's uncertain whether he truly hails from the Nazaras, a seemingly subdued Nihilakh dynasty given Trazyn's vassal dependence, or if he simply pretends. Trazyn the Infinite armed. The empathic obliterator is a unique Necron staff carried by Trazyn the Infinite everywhere he goes. This terrible weapon is rightly feared by his enemies, and there is a dark rumor that the staff contains technology derived from that of the long-extinct Old Ones. When an enemy is slain by the staff, a psionic shockwave bursts forth from his body, potentially killing nearby creatures of a similar mind and purpose. Hence, an entire squad can be wiped out with a single blow of this horrific weapon. The empathic obliterator suits the personal combat style of Trazyn, as he disdains physical combat with inferior beings of flesh and blood and prefers to cleave them apart with as little fuss as possible. Recently, Trazyn has been obsessively taking steps to preserve the ancient artifacts that interest him. The days of caution and meticulous planning quickly pass by. The noisy tumult of battles grows louder in every corner of the galaxy, consuming temples, cities, planets, and even entire civilizations, long before Trazyn the Infinite has the opportunity to catalogue everything worth preserving. The more the wildfire of war rages, the more resolute his measures become in order to save a fraction of the galaxy's greatest treasures. And now, for the first time in millions of years, Trazyn is mobilizing the full might of the Solemnace legions to defend various planets from the onslaught of ignorant barbarians, while simultaneously conducting thorough cultural research. As a result, the armies of Trazyn the Infinite have occupied numerous worlds of the Imperium, where the local inhabitants are enslaved by his relentless minions. And it seems that the legions of Solemnus have no intention of stopping there. Among these bothersome individuals, there is a complete absence of a sense of objective perception. Until I claimed this trinket, it was of no use to them. They didn't even know they had it. Wounded pride is such a foolish reason to die. Trazyn the Infinite. Throughout his life, Trazyn the Infinite has been involved in numerous events, including some of great significance. Below is an account of a few of them. Raid on Solemnace, 739 M41. Following the onslaught of the Tyrannid Hive Fleet behemoth, the xenobiologists and inquisitors of the Imperium were left with many questions that require answers. One such question brings Inquisitor Helena Valeria to the ghost world of Solemnus, seeking an explanation for why the world had gone untouched when all other planets in the Hive Fleet's path now lie destroyed. Nothing could have prepared Valeria for what she finds in the silent darkness beneath Solemnace's pitted and barren surface. Endless catacombs of advanced technology, long-lost artifacts from the Imperium's history, and gallery after gallery of intricate life-size holographic sculptures laid out in silent tableaux to commemorate historic scenes. Valeria's party is briefly awestruck by what they discover, but then the entire tomb world comes to angry life. Wave after wave of canoptic scarabs and Necron warriors descend from all sides, and the still air is filled with the whine of discharging Gauss weapons. Seeking to regain the initiative for her beset followers, Valeria led a charge against the shadowy figure orchestrating the carnage. Sighting carefully, Valeria unleashed a pulse from her graviton beamer that reduced the Necron Lord to mangled and fused scrap. Yet moments later, an identical figure emerged from the darkness, hale and undamaged. This time Valeria plunged the dagger of Midnight's blade into her adversary's heart. Yet even as her opponent's sparking frame sunk to the ground, another identical Necron Lord strode forwards, trampling the now faceless ruin at her feet. With that, Valeria ordered a retreat back to the shuttles. Only a handful of the expeditionaries that initially set out to the world survived to reach their destination, and they did so empty-handed. Much to Valeria's disappointment, the tomb world of Solemnace kept all of its glorious secrets. Sometime after the conflict, Valeria received a personal hyperscroll message from Trazyn himself, thanking her for sending 5 regiments of Katakan jungle fighters to add to his galleries. Accompanying the message as a return gift was a hyperstone maze, one of a series of tesseract labyrinths constructed at the height of the Charnavok dynasty. Dear lady, let me express my fulsome appreciation for your most generous gift. It is so very rare to discover another of my own kind that appreciates my work. Therefore, to find understanding amongst a member of another race is nothing short of a revelation. I realize that you briefly trod my galleries, but the fact that you spotted in so short a time that my Acabrius war collection was lacking 3 regiments of Katakan warriors reveals that you truly have a collector's eye for detail. And to send 5 regiments, such generosity will allow me to weed out and replace a few of the more substandard pieces in my collection. If I might level a minor criticism, the instructions issued to your gift were manifestly not as clear as you thought, as most of them had to be forcibly restrained. Sadly, it seems that the lower orders will always behave like an army of invasion, whether that be their purpose or not. However, this is a minor complaint and seems almost churlish under the circumstances, so please allow me to repay your gift with one of my own. Accompanying this message is the Hyperstone Maze, one of a series of tesseract labyrinths constructed at the height of the Charnavok dynasty. It is a trinket, really, only of interest to scholars such as you and I, but I trust you will find it amusing, assuming you have the wit to escape its clutches, of course. Hyperscroll message from Trazyn the Infinite, addressed to Inquisitor Helena Valeria, Conno 805, M41. 878, M41, Endless Animosity, Forge Father. Histan kills Trazyn the Infinite in personal combat after he attempted to steal the Spear of Vulcan for his personal collection. 933, M41, Battle for Midgardia. A Necron fleet under the command of Trazyn the Infinite arrives at the planet Midgardia, located in the Fenris system. The Overlord seeks to find a shard of Nyadra Zatha the Burning One which slumbers in the planet's core. Enraged by the audacity of the enemy, Logan Grimnar leads a massive force against the Necrons. The toxic jungles and underground cities of the Guardsmen become the scene of a fierce battle. Tok'ran Crusade, 943, M41, Trazyn the Infinite claims to have discovered the Song of Entropy, one of the missing artifacts of Vulcan, instigating a solar decade-long war between the Salamanders chapter and the Necron forces of Solemnace. Trazyn's claim proves to be a lie to lure Vulcan Histan into a trap during the assault of Tok'ran, where the Necron once again attempts to slay the Forge Father and acquire the Spear of Vulcan. The Salamander's 6th Company fight back-to-back, bolters and flamers defiantly blazing away at the surrounding Necrons. 40 battle brothers fall during the fighting, but at battle's end, Histan defeats Trazyn once more, and the Salamanders stand knee-deep in broken Necron bodies. The attack on the Traitor's Gate. War doesn't just happen to Vanyamor. Trazyn the Infinite learns that this sparsely populated Imperial garrison world holds an ancient secret. Within it, as Trazyn the Infinite discovers, lie the stars of Cain, resembling intricately carved gemstones, but in truth they are terrifyingly powerful Eldari weapons forged during the War in Heaven. In pursuit of his own agenda, Trazyn proposes to Imhotep the Stormlord and Lord Ebron the Merciless to work together, promising each of them one legendary star if they help obtain them. Trazyn himself cares little for the destructive potential of Cain's stars. He is only interested in their novelty. In reality, he intends to steal the artifacts gifted to his allies if they prove foolish enough to actually use them as weapons. Thus, the Necrons set out to attack, unaware of Trazyn's true intentions. The Imperial garrison at Vanyamor plans a meticulously orchestrated raid to secure the Stars of Kahane. However, their plans do not anticipate the intervention of the Eldari. Riders of the Storm, 988 M41. Logan Grimnar, majestic atop his chariot Storm Rider, leads his champions of Fenris in the charge that finally breaks the Necron phalanxes of Imhotep, the Stormlord, on Valoth IV. Though a great victory over the Necrons, it is a hollow one for the Great Wolf, as the hunt that brought him to Valoth IV was intended to locate Trazyn the Infinite to deliver retribution for the attack on Midgardia, 990. M41, Museum of Death, provoking the Tyrannid invasion of the planet Vuros, and then using a temporal cascade to immortalize the event, Trazyn the Infinite creates one of his largest collections to date. However, he ultimately realizes that the Tyrannids are highly impractical museum exhibits, and is forced to abandon his project after several large-scale battles take place in the halls of Solemnes. The unknowable, 991 M41, Skitarii from Stygies the Eight are sent to the Diluvian-class world of Magog, when the planet's industry dries up its oceans to reveal Necrontyr architecture. The Skitarii fight valiantly against the Necrons of the awakening tomb complexes, allowing the planet's islander people to evacuate to a man, but are badly outmatched. Only their commanding tech priests, hunting for knowledge behind the lines, escape the ensuing carnage. However, in doing so they clash with Trazyn the Infinite. One by one, the tech priests are collected in stasis fields and displayed as part of a monument to Magog's fall. The Karnak campaign, 999 M41. Anrakir the Traveller arrives on a planet he supposes to be the tomb world of Karnak, only to find it infested with Eldar Exodites, realizing that the tomb, if it remains, will be buried too deep for him to awaken before the Exodites can themselves summon aid. Anrakir entreats the Necron Lords and Necron Overlords of other tomb worlds for aid. Reinforcements arrive from Mandragora, Gidrim and Trakon, though the most unexpected of all is a contingent from Solemnas, led by Trazyn the Infinite himself. All this takes time, however, and by the time the Night Scythe fleets deploy the invading forces, the armies of the Aletok Craftworld stand side by side with the Exodites. Guided by the prophecies of Farseer Eldaroth Starbane and the strategies of Illic Nightspear, the Eldar attempt to stall the Necron invasion with a series of hit-and-run attacks. Their aim is to sever the command structure by destroying Anrakir and his closest allies. But the Pyrian Lord manages to subvert the prophecies of the Farseer through the astromantic analyses of Oricon the Diviner. Though Oricon's divinations are by no means as focused as those of Starbane, they are sufficient to tangle the skeins of fate and leave many details beyond the Farseer's reach. So it is that Pathfinders arrive at what they thought to be Anrakar's location, only to find him long gone and squads of deathmarks waiting in ambush. After several inconclusive battles on Karnak's verdant plains, Anrakir forces the Eldar to engage in a head-to-head confrontation by marching on the World Spirit Shrine. As the tireless Necron legions advance upon its walls, Doom Scythes duel with Eldar fighters in the skies above. Deathmarks ply a deadly trade of ambush and counter-ambush with Aletok Pathfinders, and all the while flayed ones prowl on the flanks, pouncing on any Eldar foolish enough to show even a momentary sign of weakness. The sides are well matched, with the Necron hardiness countered by the precise strikes of the Eldar. Victory finally falls to the Necrons when Karnak's tomb unexpectedly begins to awaken, stirred from dormancy by the tumult above. With Necron reinforcements now starting to constantly trickle into the campaign, the Eldar have little choice but to abandon Karnak and its world spirit to their foes. Anrakir is grimly jubilant in the campaign's aftermath and gladly accedes when Trazyn requests the entire World Spirit Shrine as spoils of war. For his part, Oricon requests no trophy or payment for victory and merely hopes that when the flush of victory fades, no one thinks to question the convenient coincidence of Karnak's awakening. The 13th Black Crusade, 13 times the bell of St. Gerstal tolls in the galleries of Solemnas, after which Trazyn promptly tosses it into the webway, hoping it will vex the Eldar now. 5 spare bodies of Trazyn are destroyed, half of Solemnes' stasis vaults collapsed or flooded with coolant up to the ankles, legions plunged into slumber, and the management program glitches. To unravel the mystery of the Bell's Omen, Trazyn made for Thanatos, crown world of the Necron-Oriscar dynasty and home to the wonders of the celestial orrery, and learns that something dreadful is happening in the galaxy. Identifying the origin of the corruption eating away at the fabric of space, he heads to the planet Cadia, unsure if he wants to act as a savior or a thief once again. Trazyn the Infinite appears before Archmagos Belisarius' call and offers assistance, asking for nothing in return. He reveals to the tech priest some information about the origins of the Cadian pylons and how to control them. Additionally, in the climax of the battle against the Black Legion, he releases an impressive yet motley Imperial force from his museum's reserves using the Tesseract Vault. Among the liberated are Ultramarines from the Horus Heresy era, including a Contemptor-patterned dreadnought, Vostroyan Firstborn, Tanith Snipers, Custodes and Salamanders, as well as Tempestus Scions and Inquisitor Katerinia Greyfax, who had long been a thorn in Trazyn the Infinite's side, having slain his old acquaintance Helena Valeria. While Trazyn the Infinite observes and ponders whom to add to his collection, Abaddon the Despoiler or Saint Celestine, Archmagos, armed with the knowledge obtained from the Necrons, manages to activate the network of pylons. As a result, from the surface of the world towards the Eye of Terror, a colossal pitch-black stream of negative energy begins to flow, slowly compressing the boundaries. However, the plan of Khal and Trazyn the Infinite fails when Abaddon orders the Blackstone Fortress hovering over the world to be detonated, and its debris falls down like asteroids. The defensive field neutralizing the warp collapses as soon as the first chunks of the fortress fall and destroy the pylons, tearing the world apart. The Battle of Cadia is lost, but before leaving, Trazyn the Infinite takes a trophy with him, the bloodied but unbowed Lord Osaka E. Creed. The Sulphur Heart. The Cabal of the Bladed Lotus steals a relic known as the Sulphur Heart from the Gorgon Forge. Pursuing the thieves is the Harmech clan pack, whose warriors ruthlessly slaughter intruders, yet they once again lose the artifact. This time it is stolen by the Necron Trazyn the Infinite. As punishment for his failure, Captain Cadmus Tyro is stripped of his rank and sent on a pilgrimage. For countless centuries I have beheld the dawn and fall of civilizations, and undoubtedly I will see again. Arrogant empires absolutely convinced that only they deserve a place among the stars. Dogs chasing after victories, glory, and even faith. I have seen servants of entropy, existing only to spread their malice from one galaxy to another. I have seen ruthless champions of disorder, occupied with the destruction of everything they once stood for. I have seen lovers of debauchery and hordes of barbarians. I have observed how the population of dying planets cornered tirelessly fights in empty hope for a better fate, prosperity, or survival. But no matter how fleeting their existence may be, I will be glad to accept them all into my carefully curated collection. Trazyn the Infinite.